Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, and today I'm going to show you kind of an introduction to jewelry making. I had a comment on my YouTube channel that someone wanted to see my bead collection. Well, I don't think my bead collection is that exciting, but last night when I had a friend over to scrapbook, she mentioned that she'd like to learn jewelry making, and it reminded me that I think jewelry making is one of the biggest growing craft trends right now. So I'm going to show you kind of some basics and the tools you need, the supplies you need, and kind of how to get started in jewelry making. So let's take a close-up look at some of my tools and supplies. Here is an assortment of pliers. Probably the most important tool you're going to need is an all-in-one plier set. And here's an example of one. You can see you have your pliers. There is round nose pliers on the end, which are handy for making loops when you're making earrings, doing some wire working, and also holding things still while you're trying to maneuver beads or maneuver findings onto your earrings and bracelets and necklaces and what have you. You also have this little kind of flat area in here, and sometimes that's nice if you like coil a spiral out of wire and you want to just kind of flatten it so it's all, you don't have any sticky outy parts. That's handy for that. And right there is a pair of wire cutters. And a good all-in-one tool can get you started in jewelry making. When you have, and this will cost probably, you can get a good quality one for under $10. This is also, these are also all-in-one tools. They usually have a little spring action, the nicer ones do, so it just eases your hand fatigue as you're working. And you want to find ones with really small round nose ends so that you can get the tiniest little spirals when you're working with wire. You must have one of those if you're going to start jewelry making. The second thing I would really recommend purchasing, and this isn't very expensive, it was $4 at Walmart in the jewelry aisle, and it was by West Trim Crafts, and it's just a flush cutter, and it cuts a lot closer than the all-in-one cutters. If you can see right here, I'm not sure if you can see that very well on camera, but this gets right up to your wire. This you're going to end up with like a 1/16 of an inch space before it can even cut. So I really recommend grabbing yourself a pair of flush cut pliers when you have a few extra dollars. Another thing you'll probably want to get if you're making bracelets and necklaces and working with metal like tiger tail stringing wire is a pair of crimp pliers. Now, what these do, they have a very specific task, but they help you put crimp beads on, and that is what would secure like your lobster clasp or your toggle hooks to the end of a bracelet or a necklace that's made in wire. Something else you'll want if you like to work with wire are nylon jaw pliers, and you can see mine are very well used and abused. You use these to straighten out wire that's been either used or coiled, and it just makes it work a little bit easier. You can get a little more use out of your wire. This is a bead board. This is like a velvet flock plastic tray, very lightweight, and there are measurements on it. So when you're making a necklace, like you would start, you would put your like center bead here at the 0, and then you would start building up your beads on each side. When you have it just the way you want it, then you would start stringing from one end. It's very easy to use. I really recommend picking up one of these, and they're very inexpensive. If you don't have one, you can always just lay a towel over your work surface, and that will keep your beads from rolling around. And just use a measuring tape to measure your length. But this is really nice to have, but not a necessity. If you have a measuring tape and a towel, that will work just as well. This is just a box from the scrapbook store. It's designed to hold embellishments, but I found that it worked really best for my jewelry supplies. Now in here I have a variety of findings. I have earring hooks, fish hook style. These are probably one of the findings I use the most. I have them in gold and silver. So you can have some fancy earring findings. So you would add like your fish hook up here, and then you would add lots of little beads and baubles to kind of make chandelier earrings. There are French hooks, and they're not my favorite, but some people really like them. You'd have your beads dangling from this little kind of little dip right there, if you can see it. And if you picked up a good jewelry book, beginner jewelry book, it would show you how to use all these findings. I've got some hoops that have all kind of tangled together here. This little hoop earring. So there's a single one to show you. Little hoop earring finding. And then you've got your plain post backs. So if you wanted to glue like a fancy bead, or maybe something you've made out of clay onto one of those. Toggle clasps, like here's a heart toggle, which is really pretty for, you make a bracelet for Valentine's Day. But I keep all of my jewelry bits and bobs, the metal parts pretty much, in this box. I can pull out the top drawer, the middle drawer rather, and I have crimp beads. I was telling you that you use pliers to close these. They're really just little tiny silver tubes, and when you slide your wires in there, you squish them with crimp pliers and you fold it over so you get a nice, secure, neat little fastener. And they come in different sizes depending on the type of wire you're using. I have more post-back earring findings, clip-on earring findings, and if you're going to do earrings, what you really need, and you'll go through a lot of these, are head pins. And that's what you would like string a bunch of beads on and then make a loop and put it into your fish hook or whatever dangly earring finding that you want. And I also have these bails for when I want to make fused glass beads. When I'm making fused glass beads, I use a kiln. This is a microwave kiln. It's made by Diamond Tech, the FuseWorks line, and you simply put a piece of kiln paper down. You lay some scraps of glass. Like I like to go to the stained glass shop and I buy their, scrap glass, and you melt it in the microwave. It works really neat. I wouldn't believe it worked if I didn't try it myself. But that is a FuseWorks kiln, much less expensive than a traditional plug-in-the-wall kiln. And I just have some pin backs and some other odds and ends here. I like to have a few tubes of super glue handy just to squeeze on some of my knots if I'm using like a fishing wire monofilament thread on some jewelry. I am not a expert in jewelry making, but at least I can get you started, and then when you want to look into it further, you can check out the myriad of YouTube videos from actual, legitimate jewelry makers. I really like this case. This is where I keep a lot of my beads. I like it because the latches are really secure, and my kids can't get into it if I don't want them to. But I have all my beads organized by color, and then within the color I have them divided up into different styles. And what I like about this is that I can kind of just flip it upside down and see what I have, see what color at least I have, and then I know kind of where to go from there. There are 5 of these stacks, and it's made by, it says Ultimate Stacker, by Sweet Scrap Stations. It has a copyright of 2003 on it. I don't know if you can find them anymore, but I do know some of the local scrapbook stores probably would still have some of these in stock. So that's where most of my beads are. But of course I have more beads than will fit in this, so I do have some other storage solutions. I like to use fish and tackle boxes for my odds and ends. I like to use washers sometimes, like for pendants and to build upon. I keep some of my metal charms and whatnot in here, because you never know what you're going to want for some jewelry, little Chinese coins and tokens. I like to also make beads out of clay. Here are a few beads I made this winter. I haven't gotten around to using yet, but polymer clay is really fun for doing beads. I also have this. This is one of my miscellaneous boxes. I seem to have quite a few of those. There's cupcake wrappers in here for some reason. I was probably using them to divide beads out at one point. Just some pony cord for the kids to use, and an assortment of bead caps that kind of go on top of beads to just dress them up a little bit. And just, odds and ends. Oh, look, I've been to Martin's. Look, I got 4 for $1 little toggle clasps. You're from Maine, you know all about Martin's. Elastic cord, I use that. It also has a Martin's tag. Look at that, I'm such a cheapskate. I also use this if I'm making masks or anything where I need, or party hats, and I need just a little bit of elastic cord. I'm going to keep this out because I actually need this for a project I'm doing with the kids at the library tomorrow. So I'll keep that in my box. Oh, another thing that I really like, and it's not fancy, it's just something I picked up at the craft store. It's just a big paper mache box. Oops, excuse the camera jiggle. The camera's on my table right now. And has a couple little book plates there if I wanted to label the contents, but I already know what's in here really well. And I keep my bead mandrels. This is, sometimes you want to make some shapes with wire that you really can't do with your pliers. Here we have some different shapes, and I like this Beadsmith bead mandrel because it was very inexpensive. And I have rounds, so I can do rings, but I also have ovals, triangles, and squares for, whatever else I might feel like making at the time. And just some assorted beads, some more clay things that I made. what I wanted to really show you in here, and how great repurposing is, these velvet flock trays all nest together. They actually came with a set of colored pencils. And I like to keep my colored pencils in out in a pen caddy and not packed away in a tin, so I just save these for bead making. And it works great when I have friends over or the kids want to make some jewelry. I can just give them each one of these flock trays and they can do their own projects. I keep most of my seed beads in here, so I know if I'm looking for filler or I'm doing a stitched project, like, oh, here's a broken one, I can show you an example when I need to fix. This is a peyote stitch, and it's just a little bracelet I made, and these use E beads, which are bigger than a seed bead, and they work up really quickly. It's kind of a fun bead to work with. So I have my E beads like these, my seed beads, and my other smaller beads that I would kind of use to build the bulk of a project. And they're all pretty much in their original packaging. Oops, that one's spilled, but I'm not going to worry about it. Alright, so that's where I keep my smaller beads. So I know if I'm going to be doing a stringed bracelet, something where I'm going to need a lot of a small type of bead, I just kind of look here first before I go to the store for a specific bead. Alright, let's see. I also want to show you my wire case. The nice thing about beading is that you can kind of grab beads here and there and save your leftovers, and you can really make stuff that nobody else could buy or find at a store. So, you know, when you sit down to bead, you're making something completely new, unless you're following a pattern, but even then you can change it up the way you like. These are wire jigs. If you want to do a lot of wire working, you'll find these very handy. There's all these different little pegs that are different ovals and circles, and you put them in these little grids, and then you can wrap your wire around it and make some really fancy designs. Here's some just spools of wire. These have gotten kind of expensive the last few years, but I usually use copper, aluminum, and nickel because they're fun to work with. They're soft and easy to bend, and they're not very expensive. Also, you might want to use hemp cord for more natural-looking projects, or macrame. You want to have some of this along, and it's also really great to have in the craft room because if you're a scrapbooker or a card maker, you can string these through your buttons and tie them without needing a needle, which is really, really handy. Sometimes I use dental floss too. When I'm like that bracelet I just showed you, I use dental floss to string that. It's very inexpensive, easy to find, and it is it doesn't wear, it doesn't break as easily as some other threads. It's great to use if you can't find the stringing thread. Like here is some quilting thread that you can use for stringing too. It's a little bit skinnier than the floss, so it goes through the tinier beads. And this is tiger tail, and it's basically a flexible stringing wire, and you use crimp beads to close it and to secure it when you're all done. You can get little trial packs, which will give you a small spool of black, silver, and gold, or you can buy the bigger spools once you know what you really want. I recommend starting off with a variety of little trial size packs and seeing what you're really going to use before you invest. And some more flexible cording there. And I keep all my little wires here for when I'm using my wire jigs. I also like to use it scrapbooking too sometimes. And these cute little, you can find cute little trinkets and frames in your bead store, and even in the regular craft store, just in the beading aisle. I'm probably really disappointing the person that asked to see my bead stash. It's really nothing to write home about, but it's fun, and I do enjoy working with wire and beads from time to time. And here's another miscellaneous bucket. I keep a lot of my kids' beads, the beads that I like to do projects with the children, large hole beads, because it's just easier for kids to string. And oftentimes I will just end up with these odds and ends, or somebody will give me a bag of beads, like, hey, you craft, here's some beads, so I always hang on to them because I know I'll use them for something. And just, you know, odds and ends, some chips, these are natural, precious stones. I have tiger's eye and jade, and it's really inexpensive to get these chips because usually they're the pieces that they can't carve into the really fancy stuff, so they'll sell the chips really inexpensively, so you can get that really earthy, natural feeling to a piece of jewelry for very little money. You get a big strand of these chips for a couple of dollars. We have a lot of rock shops around where I live, and in the summer you can really find some good deals. Here are my natural, I keep all my kind of natural looking and natural stone beads together. And you know, a lot of little odds and ends here, some clay, some stone, some glass. But they have a natural kind of earthy look, so I keep them together. And then my, you know, inexpensive plastic beads that the kids use. I got some bead soup at the bottom of this box. I just kind of, I think I had a leaky bag of glass beads. And I really like these. These are just your cheap plastic faceted beads, but they add a lot of sparkle and they don't have a lot of weight. So if you use these on a pair of earrings with a couple like glass beads or more expensive beads, they give you that nice sparkle you want without looking cheap. So that's good. Those are kind of nice to have too, and they're always nice on kids' projects. Well, there you have it. That's my beading stuff in a nutshell. So you know what you need to get started, and you'll have an idea of what other people have in their stash. And I hope you try making some jewelry. And to the person that requested to see my jewelry stash, I hope you're not totally disappointed. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.